Over the last couple of weeks, Batman actress Zoe Kravitz has insulted almost everyone. When I say anyone, I'm talking about Robert Pattinson. I'm talking about gamers, anyone that likes Final Fantasy, and more. Or how about Californians, or maybe Hollywood, or even Christopher Nolan. Yeah, it's interesting to see another Hollywood starlet attached to Warner trying to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Why? I don't know. I just think because they can. Warner, what are you doing? So hey there to all you fine folks on this fine day, by the way. I hope you are doing excellently. And before we get started, we had a brand new comic book come out. Link is in the description. This is how we stand up to companies that denigrate their customers, that do things like we're talking about right here. You can either walk away from mediums that you love, or you can find alternatives. We have an alternative. More on that at the end of the video. Now, as far as that Final Fantasy headline is concerned, Robert Pattinson, he's going to sit down with Zoe Kravitz. He's going to talk about his love for video games and look at how she responds. I mean, it is so condescending to him, to people who love video games, and really Final Fantasy as well.
I felt I was in love as well. I was in love with Eris. And Tifa.
And Tifa, of course.
Yeah, everybody wants to have both.
Yeah.
But it's the two sides. It's the two options of girls. You can have this.
You don't know Final Fantasy? No.
It's the best. It's a love triangle where Eris or Aerith, depending on what version of the game you have, sometimes it's mistranslated. Like, she's like the really kind girl who has her superpower is like to like heal everyone and like make the world a better place.
Poor women, we have to heal everyone.
And then Tifa's like this like sexy little thing who's like a thief and stuff. She wears a short skirt, and you're like, I can't decide. And then Eris,
this is crazy.
And Eris, right at her peak, gets killed. This is how every guy figures out what love is. And then that's the ideal woman, and it never gets any,
Either the one that's going to heal everything and the one in the short skirt. These are the options. Oh my God. This is the problem with the world.
That last part, it is really telling, isn't it? This is how every guy figures out what love is. That they meet the ideal woman, and then it never gets any. You never get cut off right there. Either the one that's going to heal everything or the one in the short skirt. These are the options. Oh my God. This is the problem with the world. Yeah, you must be living a really privileged life to think that that is the problem with the world. Now, Zoe Kravitz gets on quite the roll as Bounding Into Comics reports. Check them out, by the way, both of these articles and more of those. But she accuses Californians of the ism. She also says she was rejected from Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises because of her skin color. Like I said, she was on quite the roll. Now, if these subjects seem all over the proverbial board, that's because they come up in an interview with The Guardian, that's from theguardian.com, called I'm okay with not getting it right every time. Zoe Kravitz on growing up famous and getting her claws into Batman. Now, personally, I detest interviews like this anyhow. Why? Because rich people, people that have grown up famous and wealthy, they seem so out of touch. And that's exactly how Kravitz comes off. I mean, listen to this here. Given her background, it seems Kravitz was destined for the limelight. When I asked whether she had ever considered having a civilian job, something dry and non-flashy, not acting but accounting, she immediately brightens. We used to joke, she says, that my version of rebellion would be like to become a lawyer or something. My dad would say that sometimes because I'm good at arguing, but I don't know how I could ever have an office job. I struggle with that kind of structure or authority in general. Oh man, as a joke, I talk about getting regular jobs. Ha ha ha, you plebs. Now, when the interview rolls around to the idea of rejection, that's when you hear about Christopher Nolan. His name's going to be brought up. The Dark Knight Rises, Californians, and so much more. Quote, she would tell The Guardian, even though it's sometimes hard to see that in the moment, usually a few years later, you're like, okay, this is why it didn't happen. Specifically, she would reveal she was rejected from a role in Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises, telling the British outlet, I don't know if it came directly from Chris Nolan. This, by the way, it makes me wonder what we're going to hear about Chris Nolan in the aftermath. Later on, in a few years, are we going to hear about him being a sexist, maybe being a racist? I don't know, but watch for that, and I wonder if it links back to this interview. Continuing, I think it was probably a casting director of some kind, or a casting director's assistant. Being a woman of color and being an actor and being told at the same time that I wasn't able to read because of the color of my skin, and the word urban being thrown around like that was what was really hard about that moment. So she's telling you she was rejected and told specifically, being a woman of color and being urban, that's the reason that you couldn't have that role. And it's fascinating considering she's saying, I have a name, a big name. I was famous. I grew up that way. And yet, despite that, this is what happened to me on that role. I mean, I wonder, do you believe that or not? Continuing on. Not only did she claim she was rejected from a role in The Dark Knight Rises, but she also claimed that, quote, all the scripts that were being sent were about the first black woman to make a muffin or something. Even though those stories are important to tell, I also want to open things up for myself as an artist. Kravitz would then go on to accuse people who live near the set location of Big Little Lies as ists. She told The Guardian, quote, there are a few moments where I felt a little uncomfortable, talking about that area. Why? Because it was such a white area. She would then explain what made her uncomfortable. She said, well, there were just weird racist people in bars and things like that. Now this is just the tip of the iceberg too, with Zoe Kravitz seemingly making a big headline every other day. That first one we read, 5th. The second one, the 7th. This one came out on the 9th. It talks about hypocrisy too. Zoe Kravitz simulates drinking milk out of a bowl in a Catwoman suit after claiming she didn't want the character fetishized or stereotyped. Yeah, I mean, really, imagine that. And again, like I said, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It seems like things like this are always connecting back to Warner, too. Again, they're making money hand over fist, but it feels like somebody is trying to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Now, like I was saying, we have a comic book that just came out. Link is in the description, and we desperately need help getting the word out that it exists, getting backing, and on. This is the way that we stay sponsor-free and beholden to no one. I mean, we sponsor through this. We never have to sponsor throughout the year. Plus, we can look at companies that denigrate customers, that don't put out good products, and we say, you know what, we're going to do something because people, they're walking away and we want them walking towards something. Anyway, check this out. Appreciate you too. Let me know what you think. And until next time, we will see you soon.